The desperate proposal. The fluorescent lights in the university library flickered as Jamie Mitchell rubbed his tired eyes, the medical textbook blurring before him. At 22, Jamie carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, his mother's, mounting medical bills, his younger brother's college tuition, and his own pre-med expenses that seemed to multiply daily like cancer cells under a microscope. His phone buzzed with another text from Tommy, his 18-year-old brother. "Jamie, Mom's getting worse. The doctor wants to see us tomorrow." Jamie's stomach dropped. Their mother, Helen, had been battling a rare autoimmune disease for 3 years, and each treatment was more expensive than the last. Their father had died in a construction accident when Jamie was 16, leaving them with nothing but debt and shattered dreams. Jamie closed his textbook and walked across campus to his part-time job at the university's admissions office. The pay was barely enough to cover his own expenses, let alone help with his family's crushing financial burden. As he filed applications and answered phones, his mind wandered to the impossible mathematics of their situation. His mother needed an experimental treatment that cost $200,000, money they would never have. That evening, Jamie sat in the cramped apartment he shared with 2 roommates, staring at rejection letters from student loan companies. His credit was maxed out, his grades were slipping from exhaustion, and hope was becoming a luxury he couldn't afford. His phone rang, displaying an unknown number with a local area code. "Jamie Mitchell speaking," he answered, expecting another debt collector. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Victoria Sterling. I believe we need to talk." The voice was crisp, authoritative, with the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Jamie frowned. "I'm sorry, who is this? How did you get my number?" "I make it my business to know about promising young people facing difficult circumstances. Meet me tomorrow at the Sterling Hotel downtown, penthouse suite at 7 p.m. It concerns your mother's medical situation." The line went dead before Jamie could respond. He stared at his phone, confused and slightly unnerved. How could a stranger know about his mother's condition? The Sterling Hotel was the most expensive place in the city, definitely not somewhere a struggling student like him would ever set foot. The next morning at the hospital, Jamie watched his mother's frail form in the sterile white bed. Dr. Patricia Wells, their family physician, pulled him aside with grave news. "Jamie, your mother's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Without the new treatment, I estimate she has perhaps 6 months. With it, she could live for many more years, possibly even achieve full remission. How much time do we have to raise?" "The money?" Jamie asked, though he already knew the answer would be devastating. "The treatment needs to start within the next month, or it may be too late." That evening, Jamie stood outside the Sterling Hotel, feeling completely out of place in his wrinkled khakis and worn sneakers. The doorman looked at him skeptically, but allowed him entry when he mentioned Victoria Sterling's name. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt like ascending to another world entirely. The doors opened to reveal a stunning apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Victoria Sterling stood with her back to him, silhouetted against the glittering skyline. When she turned, Jamie was struck by her presence. Despite being 71, she carried herself with the grace and confidence of someone half her age. Her silver hair was styled perfectly, and she wore an elegant black dress that probably cost more than Jamie's entire wardrobe. "Mr. Mitchell, thank you for coming. Please, sit down." She gestured to a leather sofa that looked like it belonged in a museum. Jamie perched nervously on the edge of the couch. "Mrs. Sterling, I don't understand why you wanted to meet me. How do you know about my mother?" Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I know many things, Jamie. I know your father died owing my late husband's construction company $50,000. I know your mother is dying and needs expensive treatment. I know you're drowning in debt despite working yourself to exhaustion." Jamie's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. "What do you want from me? If this is about my father's debt, I'm doing everything I can." "This isn't about collection, young man. This is about opportunity." Victoria poured herself a glass of wine from a crystal decanter. I'm prepared to pay for your mother's treatment in full, clear all your family's debts, and provide you with a generous monthly allowance to complete your medical degree without working. Jamie's mouth fell open. What's the catch? Victoria's smile became more genuine. Marry me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jamie was certain he had misheard. Excuse me? You heard correctly. I'm proposing marriage. A business arrangement, nothing more. You would be my husband in name only, accompanying me to social functions and maintaining the appearance of a happy couple. In exchange, your financial worries disappear forever. Jamie stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. This is insane. Why me? Why would you want to marry someone you don't even know? Victoria joined him at the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. I've been alone for 8 years since my husband died. At my age, romantic love is a fool's dream, but companionship and respect are still possible. You're intelligent, ambitious, and desperately need what I can provide. I'm wealthy, lonely, and desperately need what you can offer: youth, energy, and someone to share my remaining years with. But marriage, that's supposed to be about love. Love is a luxury for people who don't have to watch their mothers die for lack of money. Victoria's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not asking you to love me, Jamie. I'm asking you to save your family. Jamie's mind raced. The proposal was shocking, unconventional, and completely outside anything he had ever imagined. But the alternative was watching his mother fade away while drowning in debt that would follow him for decades. How long would this marriage last? Until one of us dies, or until you find genuine love with someone your own age? I won't stand in the way of your happiness, but I won't be discarded carelessly either. Jamie looked out at the city lights, each one representing someone else's life, someone else's struggles and dreams. I need time to think. Of course. But time is something your mother doesn't have much of. The treatment needs to begin soon. Victoria handed him an elegant business card. Call me when you've decided, but Jamie, remember, sometimes the most unconventional solutions are the only ones that work. As Jamie left the penthouse and descended back to his ordinary world, he carried Victoria Sterling's proposal with him like a secret that could either save his family or change his life forever. The choice ahead of him would define not just his future, but the future of everyone he loved. Shocking revelations. 3 sleepless nights passed before Jamie found himself standing outside the Sterling Hotel again, his decision weighing heavily on his conscience. His mother's condition had worsened dramatically. She could barely stay, awake for more than an hour at a time, and Tommy had been calling every few hours with updates that grew progressively more frightening. The previous evening, Jamie had sat beside his mother's hospital bed, holding her frail hand as she drifted in and out of consciousness. When she was lucid, her eyes held a mixture of love and desperate worry for her son's futures. Promise me, she had whispered, that you and Tommy will take care of each other no matter what happens to me. Now, as the elevator carried him back to Victoria's penthouse, Jamie clutched a folded piece of paper, his acceptance of her proposal, written in his careful handwriting. Victoria answered the door herself this time, wearing a cream-colored silk blouse and pearls that caught the afternoon light streaming through her windows. Jamie, I wondered if you would come back. Her voice held genuine warmth, though her posture remained perfectly composed. I accept your proposal, he said without preamble, handing her the letter. But I have conditions. Victoria raised an eyebrow as she unfolded the paper, reading his neat script. You want the marriage contract to include provisions for your brother's complete education through medical school, a trust fund for your mother's ongoing care, and a clause that allows either party to end the marriage with 6 months' notice. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. To his surprise, Victoria smiled approvingly. You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Mitchell. I respect that. Very well, we have an agreement. She moved to an antique desk and withdrew a thick manila folder. My attorney Leonard Hayes has already drawn up preliminary papers. We can be married by week's end if you're agreeable. Jamie's stomach lurched. This week? Isn't that awfully fast? Your mother doesn't have time for a long engagement, and neither do I. At my age, every day is precious. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Jamie, I know this arrangement seems cold and calculating, but I want you to understand something. My late husband Charles and I were married for 43 years. What we had was rare and beautiful, and I don't expect to find that again. But what I'm offering you is partnership, mutual respect, and the security your family desperately needs. The wedding took place the following Friday in Victoria's private study, witnessed only by Leonard Hayes and Dr. Patricia Wells, whom Victoria had invited as a gesture of goodwill. Jamie wore a simple navy suit that Victoria had purchased for him, while she looked elegant in a dove-gray dress with sapphire jewelry that had belonged to her grandmother. As they exchanged vows, Jamie couldn't help but notice how Victoria's hands trembled slightly when she placed the platinum wedding band on his finger. For all her composure and business-like approach, this moment clearly carried emotional weight for her, too. By the power vested in me by the state, I now pronounce you husband and wife, the judge declared. The kiss they shared was brief and chaste, more like sealing a contract than beginning a marriage. Immediately after the ceremony, Victoria made good on her promises. She personally drove Jamie to the hospital where his mother was scheduled to begin the experimental treatment that very afternoon. Helen Mitchell's eyes filled with tears when she saw the expensive medical team Victoria had assembled. Jamie, how did you manage this? His mother asked weakly, squeezing his hand. I found a way, Mom. Just focus on getting better. Over the following days, the transformation in Jamie's life was surreal. He moved into Victoria's sprawling estate on the outskirts of the city, occupying a guest wing that was larger than the apartment he had shared with roommates. Victoria maintained her own quarters in the main house, and they saw each other primarily at dinner, which was served by her longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Garcia. Their conversations during these meals were surprisingly engaging. Victoria was well-traveled and intellectually curious, asking thoughtful questions about Jamie's medical studies and sharing stories from her decades-running Sterling Enterprises, a diversified investment company she had built with her late husband. You remind me of Charles when he was young, she told him one evening over dessert. The same determination to succeed despite humble beginnings. He started with nothing and built an empire through sheer will and intelligence. What happened? To him? Jamie asked, genuinely curious. Victoria's expression grew distant. Heart attack at 63. He worked himself to death, really. I've spent the last 8 years trying to figure out how to honor his memory while not making the same. Mistake he did. 3 weeks into their marriage, Jamie received a call that would change everything. He was studying in the estate's impressive library when his phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Jamie Mitchell? The voice was young, male, and carried an edge of hostility. Yes. Who is this? Richard Sterling, Victoria's nephew. We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's Bar on 5th Street in an hour. Come alone. Against his better judgment, Jamie found himself sitting across from a man about his own age in a dimly lit dive bar that was the complete opposite of Victoria's refined world. Richard Sterling had the same sharp features as his aunt, but his expensive clothes couldn't hide the bitterness in his eyes. So you're the gold digger who married my aunt, Richard said without preamble, taking a long swig of beer. It's not like that, Jamie protested, though he felt heat rise in his cheeks. Isn't it? Young guy, desperate for money, marries a rich, old woman? Sounds pretty textbook to me. Richard leaned forward aggressively. What you don't know is that Victoria has been battling early-stage Alzheimer's for the past year. Jamie felt the world tilt around him. That's impossible. She's sharp as a tack. She's good at hiding it, and she's on medication that slows the progression. But her doctor says she has maybe 5 good years left before the disease takes over. Completely? Richard's voice grew colder. She married you because she's terrified of dying alone and forgotten. And when she does die, her will leaves everything to her surviving spouse, meaning you'll inherit over $200 million. The revelation hit Jamie like a physical blow. I had no idea about any health issues. She never mentioned— Of course she didn't. Victoria Sterling doesn't show weakness to anyone. Richard finished his beer and stood up. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand what you've gotten yourself into. When she starts forgetting things, when she becomes someone you don't recognize, are you going to stick around, or are you going to take the money and run like everyone expects? That night, Jamie couldn't sleep. He wandered the halls of Victoria's estate, looking at portraits of her and Charles in happier times, trying to reconcile the woman he was getting to know with Richard's devastating news. Around midnight, he found Victoria in her study, reading by lamplight. Couldn't sleep either? She asked, looking up from her book. Jamie sat down across from her, studying her face for signs of the disease Richard had described. Victoria, we need to talk. Your nephew Richard contacted me today. Her composure faltered for just a moment before returning. I wondered when he would make his move. What did dear Richard have to say? He told me about your Alzheimer's diagnosis. Victoria closed her book carefully and set it aside. For a long moment, she said nothing, then finally nodded. I suppose it was inevitable that you would find out. Yes. I have early-stage Alzheimer's disease. I was diagnosed 14 months ago. Why didn't you tell me before we married? Would you have agreed to the arrangement if you had known? Her question hung in the air between them. Jamie considered lying, then decided on honesty. I don't know. Maybe not. That's exactly why I didn't tell you. Victoria's voice was steady, but Jamie could see vulnerability in her eyes that hadn't been there before. I've watched Alzheimer's steal away people I loved. I know what's coming. The confusion, the anger, the gradual erasure of everything that makes me who I am. I couldn't bear the thought of facing that alone. So this was all manipulation? The marriage, helping my family? The help I've given your family is real and permanent, regardless of what happens between us. But yes, I married you partly out of fear. Victoria stood and moved to the window, her reflection ghost-like in the dark glass. I'm a proud woman, Jamie. Asking for help has never come easily to me, but the prospect of losing my mind terrifies me more than anything I've ever faced. Jamie felt a complex mixture of anger, sympathy, and something else he couldn't quite identify. What happens now? Do we pretend this conversation never happened? That's up to you. You can leave tomorrow if you choose. Our prenup has a clause that provides for your family's continued care even if the marriage ends. You'd be free to resume your life with all your debts cleared and your mother's treatment guaranteed. Jamie looked at this remarkable woman who had entered his life like a force of nature, offering salvation with one hand while harboring devastating secrets with the other. The choice before him was no longer just about money or convenience. It was about what kind of person he wanted to become when faced with someone else's deepest vulnerability. I'm not leaving, he heard himself say, but things are going to be different between us. No more lies, no more manipulation. If we're going to make this work, it has to be based on honesty. Victoria turned from the window, tears glistening in her eyes for the first time since he had known her. You would stay, even knowing what's coming? Everyone deserves dignity in their final years, Jamie said quietly. Even manipulative billionaires who marry desperate college students. For the first time since their wedding, Victoria's smile was completely genuine. I think this arrangement might work out better than either of us expected, Mr. Mitchell. As they sat together in the lamplight, Jamie realized that their unconventional marriage had just transformed from a business transaction into something far more complex and meaningful. A partnership built not on love or passion, but on mutual need, growing respect, and the shared understanding that sometimes the most important promises we make are the ones that cost us the most to keep.